All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this video on Necromancy Views. I'm Angelus, son of Abaddon, um, and today I'd like to discuss necromancy in a few different point of views. Okay, but I'm also going to be showing you some great materials that will help you to understand necromancy from a practitioner's viewpoint. Okay. Now, keep in mind that there are many different sources out there, things that come across as hypocritical in sense, but there's also a lot of good fundamental viewpoints from a philosophical to a mysticism to even a practical practice of information out there. Okay. So let us begin. I'm going to start with some materials that I think that will benefit you in the long run. Now, those of you who have been around for the past, say, 5 to 10 years have heard of S. Connolly. Okay. S. Connolly is a demonolator S. Okay. She chooses to work solely with demons, and she's also associated in some aspects with the group run by E.A. Coetting and J.S. Garrett in them, How to Become a Living God. S. Connolly is one of the foremost experts in demonolatry and necromancy. Her background is actually in necromancy. She's written several books from the sacraments to going all the way back to her first book, Honoring Death. Okay. And this is Honoring Death. It's her first book that she ever wrote and published. Okay. Very, very good book. She actually sent me to this book when we were discussing necromancy and divination and all that stuff from chiromancy practices. Now, what I found interesting about communing with S. Connolly is she really knows her stuff and she can really, really point you in the right direction on a lot of the path workings of necromantic rituals. Okay, so do check her out. The next one is if you're looking for historical content on necromancy, kind of dropping my books here. The first one that I would recommend is by Lucian Raphael, and it's called Necromancy, the Forbidden Art. You can find this on Amazon and eBay. Okay. Try to get his, there we go. Get a little bit of a light here. All right. Between him and Christian Days, The Witch's Book of the Dead. Okay. These two books here not only deal with necromantic history, but I have found through my own personal studies of necromancy that their accounts of historical and mythology is very, very accurate. Okay. I give these two gentlemen 2 thumbs up. Okay. Plain and simple. The next book is a $40 book. And unfortunately, what's sad is it's not cheaper than that, at least that I have found. But still in a good, price. And it's called Forbidden Rites, a Necromancer's Manual of the 15th Century by Richard Kekeffer. Okay. And it looks just like this. Okay. This book has a lot of information and a lot of experiments. Okay. Keep in mind that the experiments in this book, from like banquets, horses, and castles, illusionist point of views and perspectives, are all in this book. And I've discovered that it actually goes back beyond the 15th century and goes back into the 12th and 13th century. Okay, it's known as the Munich manuscript, long before it became known as the Munich. Actually, it's called the Munich Scrolls. Okay, and long before it became known as the Munich manuscript. Okay, and it's very, very full of knowledge, a lot of experiments, practices, history, and it even breaks down the original seven forbidden arts. Okay, I really like that about that book. But unfortunately, between that book and the Grand Grimoire, the Constitution of Pope Honorius, the Solomantic keys, stuff like that, they really are a little bit hypocritical, and I'll tell you why. They mostly go beyond four grimoires. Okay, four grimoires. What is a grimoire? A grimoire is a book of magic that is based off magical workings. Okay, now in this case, we're talking the Grand Grimoire, the keys of the clavicle of Solomon, the Constitution of Pope Honorius, also known as the Grimoire of Honorius, and we're talking about the Red Dragon as well. But we're also talking about the Grimoire of Armadale. Okay, the Grimoire of Armadale is a book of angels. Okay, that deal with a lot of supernatural things that can even be brought back to the books of Enoch. Okay, now in this case, what I found out in my own personal study, my own personal research, is that even though these are four great grimoires that most of today's traditional practitioners actually study from, but they were created by actual priests from the Vatican. Okay, and if you look at the time periods of all of these works, okay, you'll see that it was Christian ministers who wrote them, because it was always the church and nobles who were able to read and write. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so a lot of things got corrupted. The next two books are more modern, and it's called the Blood Sorcery Bible, Volume 1 and 2, Necromantic Rituals, or Rituals in Necromancy, and Striking the Target, the Practitioner, in the Static Practice, Iron Blood Magnetics. Okay. And these two books here are actually from Sorceress Cagliostro, the next necromancer. Now, I have the honor of being friends with her as well, and I've actually communed with her, and she really does know her stuff. You can find her videos right here on YouTube, and I believe Facebook as well, because I think she has a page on Facebook. So really look into her. She really knows her stuff, and in Volume 1, she has like 20 pages, if not a little bit more, on where to, medical practices on where to cut to strengthen your own body, to draw the blood from safely, how to do it, where to do it, stuff like that. So, I mean, as a medical professional in her career, she really knows her stuff, and she really breaks it down for you. I really love that about her works. Now, Francis Barrett, the author of the Magus, Volume 1 and 2, 18th century, okay, along with Henry Cornelius Agrippa, the three books of occult philosophy, okay, really gets down into necromancy from a alchemical and herbal perspective. Not just that, but also the perspective on geomancy, geometric shapes and the ritual workings. Now, we've all heard of Eliphas Levi, and we've heard of Aleister Crowley, okay, and how they performed rituals. But when I was going through the Magus Volume 1, and I was reading down through it, and it's talking about, God and invoking the Kabbalistic and Hermetic names of power, okay, such as Yahweh and Jehovah and Allah and all that, that type of stuff, which I really could care less about because I don't see them. I see it more as a corruption perspective. But I'm also a black arts practitioner solely, so of course I would. Now, while I was reading Volume 1 of the Magus, I came across his thought forms of Eliphas Levi. And he spoke on the two types of necromancy, the reanimation of a corpse and that of conjuration. And he mentions Eliphas Levi in Volume 1. And I was reading down through it, and it was very, very fascinating. The rituals and how he went to England. He was invited to England to, namely London, to join a particular order of black magicians. And even though that didn't work out well, Eliphas Levi did come in contact with a lady. Okay. Some say she was a lady of the court who put forth an actual summoning, a conjuration, and that he performed it. And it scared him so much that he left England soon after, went back to his home country, and started working with the Kabbalah and the Hermetic systems, never to return to the black arts like that again. And you can actually find this story in full detail in The Doctrine and Ritual of High Magic, a new translation. Okay, and it looks like this. And that's by Eliphas Levi himself. All right. Very, very good book on magical systems from the Hermetic perspective. But all right. Now, another great source is Richard Cavendish, all three editions, okay, of the Black Arts. Okay. And this is the Black Arts. This is the third edition. No, this is the second edition. Sorry. And this one here is the second edition, but I own all three. And I mostly use this when I study because I find it to be more realistic, okay, more to the point and close enough to his own writings. And I really, really like this one and how he stuck to the facts from astrology to numerology and such, okay, even down to the actual rituals. Now, with that said, I've also gone into, because I've been associated with Sorceress Cagliostro, her works in the Blood Sorcery Bible really got me thinking about the medical applications of necromancy. And when I started digging into the old ways of necromancy, meaning nigromancy, meaning the art of black magic, okay? Negro meaning black and mancy meaning the art of, okay? The art of black magic, okay? Long before it became associated in the Greek sense, necro meaning corpse and mancy meaning practice of death, okay? It's the practice of death magic. All right. Kind of like the Kabbalah system when it talks about the tree of death, specifically that of Arioch, his book on the 5 books of satanic philosophy. Very, very good book. He really gets the planetary stars and alignments in there, the demonic hordes that rule those klipos, okay, and really get into the tree of death. All right. Now, with that said, since last year, I have really delved into the arts and practices of the Majorjara Cabal system. put forth by Sumnus Dreadwood. And most importantly, a good friend of mine, and I consider this guy a teacher. I consider this guy a mentor. I've every time I've had a question, about necromancy or the Cabal systems, even the gods and the deities within the 13 Blighted Lords and the underlings and the different realms, I've always gone to Marcus. Okay. Marcus is one of those sorcerers who are truly dedicated. He's honest, he's upfront with people, and he's not afraid to put people in their place when they get it wrong. I've got nothing but respect for him and Sumnus Redwood. Okay. I find that as the Ascended Grand Master, Sumnus Redwood is the most and foremost expert within the necromantic fields and the Cabal systems. All right. And when it comes to spiritual warfare, he has done at least 3 videos just on that alone. And I have to admit, I'm impressed. Okay. I'm highly impressed by this guy and his works, his knowledge of spiritual warfare is rivaled by no other, at least in my own personal opinion. Now, I've always believed that before you can destroy something in reality, you must first go in and weaken it in the spiritual realm. But some of the Redwood and the Cabal workings really take that well beyond. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, I've been going down through these books, and I have all the books so far, along with the PDF. That when you apply to the Magic Jiraiya Cabal, they send you a PDF Volume 1. Okay, really awesome thing. I didn't really understand the PDF that much until I got into the books. Okay, once I started getting into the books and really delving into the drawings of the glyphs and the hieroglyphs and the personal sigils, the towers, and all this stuff and learning, then that PDF made sense to me. Okay. Now, the first book on necromancy that I would recommend for all of you to actually delve into, especially if you want to get into that aspect, is a book called Charnel Whispers, Mastery of Necromancy, Death and Undeath by Sumnus Stradley. All right, and it looks just like this. All right. Now, I'm most of the way through this book for the 4th time. Okay, 4th time, just on this book alone. And I've been studying these books since last year. Every time I read this book, I get something new out of it. It is a very powerful grimoire in itself. The rituals, the titles, the meditations, and even the perspectives of self thought. Okay. For an example, on page 134, the book VII, Soul. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to butcher this word, but the phylacteries, Phylaceteries. Okay. Um, he puts down some questions that you really need to ask yourself, and I really like that. For an example, have you weighed all options available for an appropriate, thing? Did you seek guidance from a certain deity, which I'm not going to pronounce here? Does the chosen suit you in your situation? Have you performed the rite of cleansing as given? Are proper safeguards in place to protect you? Okay. And I mean, at the end of each chapter in this book, he really puts his stuff through, and it's really clear that he has thought about this, not just thought about it thoroughly, but also went into it on great detail because of the fact that he most likely went through this himself. Okay. Now, Another one of these books on necromancy is called The Black Scriptures, The Fundamental Rituals of the Magiran Magic by Sumner Stredwood. Okay, and it looks just like this. All right. Now, this book here talks a lot about the towers, the glyphs. I guess you can call it the lineup, so to speak. But also the different viewpoints of world necromantic rituals, the rites and the practices. Um, Really, he touches base on the different planes of existence, the different things like the gates, the opening the gates, the gateway, redirecting the gate, kind of walking you through a lot of this stuff. Cursing with black fire, conjuring demons within, um, a lot of different things, but most importantly goes into the spells and the elements and the whispers that go along with them. I really like that book, and I've read that about 3 to 4 times as well. I've studied it, and I've actually been breaking it down and really getting into it. I've been leaning more and more towards this path when it comes to necromancy. Now, the next one is called The Eye of the Oracle, the Cabal Grimoire of Psychic Magic. Now, and it looks like this. Okay. Now, this book here delves a lot with the gods. It delves with the redefining of the sonics, um, the ultra matter, how to set up the void meditations, the personal sigils of people, of these beings that rule certain things, like you know, and who's under whom, stuff like that. But in the same way, he also writes down meditation, astral projection, remote viewing, fully manifested psionic, spiritual travel, telepathy, and telepathy, psychometabolic augmentation, manifesting intent and desire. And you see where I'm going with this. And this is just stuff that he just kind of just writes down as individual things, and it is fascinating. Um, I'm currently going through this one right now, and really starting to get into it and write down notes and stuff like that. So I do recommend that one. The next one is a massive, massive book. Okay. And you'll see what I mean here. I mean, look at this. Okay. It's that thick. It's not one of these little pamphlet type books. I mean, this is really a lot of stuff. And it's called Profane Seals, a compendium of vile Gil magic, Volume 1 by Sumner Stredwood. This book has so many different sigils, from the blighted lords to those who to the skill of the tower, to the god that rules it, to the personal sigil of that god. Okay, but most importantly, it deals with a lot, just about every deity that Sumner Stredwood in the Cabal speaks upon. Okay, I really like that, and Marcus even directed me to. I told him I had this vision while working with Zazazel, that I had seen this figure, and I described the figure. And after a couple of days, and this is something that I really like about Marcus, is because he actually takes the time to think. He doesn't just fire back, "Well, I think it's this." No, he will sit there and think about it. He will meditate on it. He will do what I can't speak to what he does, but he takes his time to get back to you, and he really directs you into an area that will deal with it. And he actually directed me to this book, and I believe it was on page 2 something here. But yeah, the Dre lifts and stuff like that. But it was really some good stuff. And after studying these beings, okay, and I'm just gonna go to the page here. I'm really, really close here. But anyways, yeah, I mean, he directed me right to the beings that and I started studying them and going down through the images and what they look like. And I found several that were very close, but then I realized in Celtic lore there is actually not just Germanic, but Norse, Celtic, or Gaelic, and Welsh regions. There was actually these beings known as the Dark Elf or the Elven, and the way they looked. And I started going down through them, and I realized that they weren't really putting in the whole depiction of these beings, but the way I looked at it and saw it, it directed me to these. And Marcus actually directed me to these beings. So thank you. Okay. Now there are three more books. The Spheres of Devastation was the last book that I bought, and it's called Unchained Sorcery of the Realms by Summer Stredwood. Now, I haven't had a chance to really delve into this, but I have come across, how should I say this, beings, certain beings, and that belong to a realm that it's kind of like a dark realm, and it goes along with the Void Meditations and the Tower of Atropy. And it was very fascinating because a friend of mine from Texas and I were discussing this. We were doing Sunday school with Satan for a little bit. We did that like 3 or 4 times, and then he went his own way, and I just took a step back. There was a lot of drama in the heathen TV aspects, so I don't know what went down, and I don't care. But anyways, the first book that I ever bought by Sumner Stredwood was in the Cabal was The Left Hand, the Cabal Grimoire of Walking in Darkness. And it looks like this. Okay. This book here is very, very well written. It really delves into what the Cabal is and what the history of it is, but also it has some very good workings within them. Okay. The Last Rites, the Nigrum, just Ecclesia Gahani with an AE at the end, to the Night of the Demon, um, and a whole bunch of other stuff in here. And this is something that I actually did like, the Invocations of the Dark Powers, starting on page 68. Going down through these beings, you really get a sense of what they're capable of doing, what region or realm that they can operate in, and stuff like that. So, I mean, I do recommend that book to you. And then you have the final one, and it's called The Rites of the 13th Tongue, an intimate sojourn into the Mirs Jariah, okay, by Sumner Stredwood. This one here has all the rituals and all the rites and stuff, curses, hexes, healing, money, you name it, it's in here. And I've read down this through this book at least one and a half times so far. And the power of the human heart, into the abyss, open the pits, the senses of Mbazen. I'm not sure if I pronounce that name right, but it's got a lot of different rites and rituals in here. And in some cases, you actually have the personal sigils. Now, the one thing I found interesting is the word lick, okay? Leech, lick, stuff like that, that is written throughout this. And you're getting into titles and almost ranking systems when it comes to necromantic rituals. And in one case, I actually took me into another religion that was founded in I should say 2001, and it was based off Judaism. Okay, now what is Judaism? It's with two eyes and an SM at the end. Okay, think of Star Wars trilogy. Okay, the Jedi. Okay, and this religion was actually founded back in 2001 and deals with the forces of darkness like the Sith. Okay, the Sith, their powers of mentalism, their powers of mind reading, telepathy, stuff like that. You know, the being able to move things with their mind, the foresight, the seership, the mediumship. Okay, and when you get into the area of the Sith, you know, a lot of people really get into the Sith lords and stuff like that. Now, here is where we're going to get into a touchy situation. Okay. And a lot of people may not like this, but my research has actually led me into this. So, down in Texas, there was an order that was actually put up out of this Jedi system, 2005, and they got a IRS exempt um, discount because and literally viewed as a religious order. Okay. Now, to keep in mind that worldwide there are hundreds of followers in this one religion. So while I was going down through the powers of a necromancer, from being able to conjure, reanimate, to utilize chiromancy, okay, necromantic rituals and rites, powers, stuff like that, I've come into similar, how should I say this, similar views in this case that kind of go along with what the the mythological, or I should say sci-fi, and yes, I'm using the term sci-fi because that is the way I see that religion of Judaism, Judaism, I should say, as being, even though it's a well-established religion based off the Sith, there's really no Sith order, okay? But there is one based off the Jedi itself. Now, even though there are similar methods like meditation, visualization, the increased mental acuity, okay, such as being able to see things before they happen, to utilize chiromancy or divination practices like cartomancy, um, runes, dealing with sigils and stuff like that. You can really see the similarities, but that's as far as it's gotten in that religion. Now, as I said, I've also gone into the word lick and leech or leash, okay, which is also titles, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's lick with a THE at the end, okay. Now, this is what I found interesting is I really haven't found any commonalities, no similar titles or names throughout any region of the old world, from Greek, Roman, Mesopotamia, Babylonian, Sumerian, Slavic, Egyptian. Okay. None of these regions even have the term. You type in under Google the word lick or leash, okay, or leech, or what, however you want to pronounce it, okay, and it really doesn't bring up anything outside of the little worm that sucks the blood from the veins, okay, and it's very fascinating. So it's kind of wondering. It makes you wonder, where did they get this word from? Where did they find this? Okay. Now keep in mind the Cabal system has been around since the 13th century. There's a lot of medieval knowledge worldwide, from Asia to Europe, Indo-European, down into Egyptian, the Middle East, and such. Okay, so there's still so much knowledge out there, both left, from the Western world to the Eastern world, that we still got to go over. Okay, there's so much knowledge that it's mind blowing at times. But when we look at it, though, the Cabal system really touches on necromantic rituals in a pure sense. And that's my point here. I really like the fact that it's that powerful. I performed a few rites out of the 13 tongues and got immediate results. I've done rituals, like the void meditations, okay, the regular meditations, the waking death rituals, out of Charnel Whispers, okay, and I've gone from that into the Black Scriptures and really studied the two different types of meditations that I found in there. Very, very, very exciting. There's a lot of good workings there, but I've also been watching videos by Satanists and stuff like that that really touch on. There's very, very few satanic and other black arts magicians that work in the area of void meditation and void workings, ritual work. Okay. The more you get a sense of what void meditation is or void workings, you're seeing the bigger picture of how you transgress. Like when we look at it, the inverted pentagram, we have 5 points on the outer. And when you get into the center, you got 5 more. And then you got the X's, which are degrees. Okay. 5 degrees, okay, of a practitioner. You got the 10 pillars, okay, or what I refer to as the 10 pillars of the pentagram. Okay, the witch's creed, the witch's pyramid. All right. Now, what's interesting to note is that the more you get into this stuff, you're going to see a broader picture, no matter what system of magic you get into. When you get into Hermetics or Kabbalah, when you get into necromancy, black magic, witchcraft, shamanism, and keep in mind that shamanism is just as old as nigromancy. Okay, nigromancy, the art of black magic. Okay, and there's in a lot of cases in my own studies, shamanism, such as herbalism and alchemy practices, go hand in hand with necromantic practices. So, I mean, you're seeing how a lot of these come together. There's a lot of overlapping material. So you really have to be careful on what you're believing and what you're not. Okay. If you do your research and you get into a lot of these rituals and a lot of these rites, you'll notice that there's contamination, but there's also that cross connectedness where you may come across something out of shamanism or alchemy, herbalism. Okay, when you're doing blood ink, there's a lot of systems that talk about the blood inks. Okay, you get into the Da'ath agents, for an example, like in hoodooism or voodooism. Voodooism, you have the Bokor and the zombie myth. The zombie powder. You go into European roots, you get the vampiric. Go into German, and you get the wraith. Okay, you go into other areas, and you got the lycanthrope. Okay, the ghouls. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that go into this particular thing. But when you get into the herbalism aspect, you're noticing that the commonalities of these alchemical and herbalism practices deal with the sorcerer's blood, own blood. You're dealing with certain species of puffer fish, a toad, the gases of a toad, and the poisons or venoms of a tree frog. Okay. Now, and then all the other ingredients come and go and vary depending on practitioner to practitioner. So you'll see those overlaying things, but also you'll see the commonalities and the differences. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, with that said, I've also, because of Sorcerer's Cagliostro, the Necromancer, and the Cabal system put forth by Sumnus Dreadwood, the Ascended Grand Master, I've really delved into herbalism on a professional level, namely dealing with poisons, things that can be used for healing, because even in Nicholas Remy's book, Demonolatry, the ancient and historical account of witchcraft, chapter 1 shows three of the most common powders found on witches during the burning times, the witch trials, the persecutions. The black powder, which kills, the amber color that makes ill, and the white that heal. Okay. So I really started delving into that stuff, especially since I got into working with the 13 towers of the Cabal, because of the fact that working with the poisons and the venoms, you're really understanding where these things are coming from and why they were utilized, not just in the art of assassination, which was Japanese, specifically in ninjutsu. Okay, the assassin um, creed that has been used for centuries through the art of assassination, through the European struggles of nobility, where they would use poisons like hemlock because it was odorless and tasteless, so that was the best thing to fed into wine and food. Okay, so you see where that goes in, but then you notice around North America where a lot of poisons like New Orlander or Orlander, venomous things that are sitting there at playgrounds, school systems, even where the kids go, that are poisonous. And it's like, yeah, this is just plain stupid. It's even in parks, which, so I mean, you're seeing all this stuff and it's like, damn. Okay. So when we get into all of this aspects, you're going to see a wide range of where all this stuff is utilized. And that's the point. But because I've studied the Blood Sorcery Bible, volume 1 and 2, I've broken it down. I've been working with not just volume 1 and 2, but this other book by Sorceress Cagliostro. I've really started delving into the medical aspects of necromancy. Okay. And through my research and doing the essay for Edgar Kerval's book, Sabbatica, I came across medical uses going back at least 300 to 400 years in the formation of reanimating corpses, prolonging life, or at least the experiments to prolong life. And what I found interesting is that even in the clavicle of Solomon, getting into certain grimoires, the Warlock's book by Peter Haining, there's actually rituals on prolonging somebody's life, the lifespan, becoming immortal. Okay, and I really found that interesting because when you get into it, you're looking at electroshock therapy, freezing the body, okay, which explains hypothermia during the winter and how they're able to bring somebody back from the dead that's been in the water for like an hour or even longer, going 40 minutes without oxygen because the oxygen that's in the body is frozen. Okay, and to see how that plays out and showing how ice water slows down the metabolical systems, the brain currents and the degradation of it, seeing how electrocution jump starts these things. So you're seeing the medical aspects of it, and today we actually have in the medical field, you have when they call the code blue, they got those little paddles now, the defibrillators, and knowing to where you can put it and what megajoule to use. Okay, you got the adrenaline that you can shove right into the heart to kickstart the heart in the system. Very, very fascinating stuff. I really recommend that you look into this stuff because, like I said, I'm still doing it. It's been almost, it's been about 9, 10 months now, and I'm still going through all this stuff, just researching, studying, and trying to put into application everything that I've learned into a system of working. All right. For now, I hope this has been intellectual. I hope it's been enlightening. I hope that you go and get these sources of information, these grimoires, and really take your time and study them, break them down, and then practice them. Apply it to your life. Okay, not just the gods and the demigods, the 13 blatant, the 13 blatant lords and stuff like that, but to get into all aspects of it. Okay, don't be afraid to take your time. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to somebody. Just practice them. Get delved into them. Get multiple different viewpoints, and you'll see exactly what I mean because not everybody shares the same views. All right. I'm Angelus, son of Abaddon. Have a good night.